representation.
Don't tempt fate, Your Worship, don't tempt fate.
Order, Mr. Chairman.
Councillor Fletcher.
I was remiss in that I wasn't here at the beginning of the meeting, but I just seek your advice. There was a matter of extraordinary business that I wish to raise on behalf of the Albert Eden Local Board, who met yesterday, and I understand that it's germane to other local boards. Councillor Simpson also has a concern on this, and that relates to a forum that was held for the chairs of the local boards earlier this week, where they were advised that the Finance Committee had taken a decision on the 23rd of November not to allow the consultation on local board initiatives to go out in our Auckland. And my understanding is the decision on this would need, if that has been the case, and I do not recall voting on that, but maybe I can stand corrected, but if that is to be, if we are to get clarity around that, and if there is an intention to have our Auckland convey the local board initiatives, a decision would have to be made by the end of the year. So I just seek your indulgence as to when we, if you would accept it firstly, and secondly, when we might actually have a discussion around this.
Yeah, I'll seek clarification. I don't know whether we have officials here that, Phil Wilson, would you like to come to the table, Phil, and just comment on that? It's not an issue I'm familiar with.
I do recall the debate because we had a lot of discussion about whether or not we had formal submissions on the LTP, but this was apparently a matter that
okay, let's get a comment from Phil Wilson.
It's a long way round to tell you I'm not sure either. So if I can just have a little bit of time, perhaps over the lunch break, I'll clarify what the story is and then be in a better position to give you some advice.
I think you've signalled your concern about it. We'll get Phil to come back and he may be able to deal with it quite quickly, or we may need to have further discussion.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor.
Thank you,
Phil Wilson. If we look at item 12, I'm tempting fate, I think, but it's with respect to the finalising of the process for review of representation arrangements. If we could have Marguerite come to the table on that. Just to advise councillors that in respect to item B, when I circulated asking for governing body members their interest in being on the working party, I had agreement from councillors Linda Cooper, Daniel Newman, Kathy Casey and Wayne Walker. The suggestion was that the committee be a committee of 8, evenly balanced between local body and governing body. So I'm proposing that we accept those nominations. For the local body members, there was a rather longer list, but my suggestions to the committee are Shane Henderson, Richard Northey, Angela Dalton and Phelan Puri, representing the North, South, Centre and West, and also representing in the North the rural North. So if you just keep that in mind, those are the officials' recommendations that I'm happy with, but we can have discussion about that. Marguerite, if you'd like to introduce the item.
So this report is about agreeing the process for the upcoming representation review. It has been in front of you before. If you remember, you agreed to the process and agreed that we would consult with local boards about it. So we have gone around and consulted with the local boards. They are overall supportive of the process that we had suggested. One thing is that some local boards said that they wanted to hear the submissions themselves. I think when we come to the point where we put a proposal out, it will be very apparent that those proposals will affect some local boards more than others. It won't affect the majority of the local boards, and the wards won't be affected. So what we're proposing is that we just put the first proposal out, and then we can review the consultation process if there is still a burning desire by the local boards to hear the submissions. One point I would make is that actually the legal timeframes to hear submissions is quite short. It's 6 weeks, and so we will have to design a process that enables that to happen.
Great, thank you. Questions first. Councillor Simpson.
Yes, Marguerite. So obviously there was a big list of people who wanted to be on the appointments. Maybe this is to you, Your Worship. And I just feel that, if people put their names forward to something, you're obviously going to write to these people and say, look, it wasn't that we didn't want you, didn't like you, but we just couldn't have everybody.
Yes.
I just feel, sometimes we're desperate for people to volunteer for things, and all of a sudden we've got too many people, and I just know that there have been people from my ward, so I just would like to, make sure that
that's,
there's a-
if I can answer that question, that's certainly the case. I think last time we dealt with this issue, or we dealt with an issue involving local boards, we kept expanding the size of the working party to try to accommodate everybody. And the end result was we had an 8-8 balance, I think, Deputy Mayor, and we had real trouble getting governing body members to be able to attend all of the meetings that they were called to. We've decided to keep it smaller, but I will be writing thanking everybody for their nomination and saying that while we couldn't accommodate everybody, we really welcomed their input into the review. I think that's the appropriate thing to do.
Thank you, Your Worship. And my second question is just you targeted on the boards that wanted to do hearings. Again, if it's sort of not practical or a tight time frame where it doesn't affect them, I just think the explanation around why that decision, we're going to make that decision, would be useful to them as well.
Absolutely. So at the moment, my recommendation is that we leave it open.
Yeah.
And then once we've got the proposal on the table, it'll become clearer where the potential areas of interest will be for the public, and we can revisit that at the time. So that's what I'm proposing.
Thank you. And then finally, having submitted to the governing body myself in the past as a local board chair, again, if we could just get a response back to those who have actually resolved around it and explain which ones of their resolutions have been accepted and the ones that haven't been, why. And I think it just puts closure in the loop rather than just leave it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other questions?
There's a list there,
Councillor
Your
Hills.
Worship.
Then Councillor Philippina after Councillor Hills.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a quick question, and I know it's not exactly on this, Marguerite, but I see some of the things of the purpose of this were already discussed through the governance framework review around wards and elections and things like that, and we've already made decision. Will that be just taken into account, or does it need to be re-debated, or is this a separate process entirely?
Through the chair, can you remind me which decisions you're referring to? Because
It's the suggestions around electing at large and different things that are mentioned.
okay, yes, absolutely. We will take that into account when we
Take it into
put the working party together.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, cool. So we don't necessarily need to revisit every decision we made this year?
No.
Okay.
Councillor Philippina.
Your Worship, just give me an idea as to which of the local board members who wish to be on there haven't made the cut.
I'll read through the people that nominated. Colin Davis, Carmel Claridge, John Mewson, Tracy Mulholland, Shane Henderson, Kay McIntyre, Andy Baker, Richard Northey, Bernie Driver, Angela Dalton and Phelan Puri. So those were the nominations that I've received. The names I'm suggesting are those that officials think provide a dispersal across Auckland, and who sometimes, some of them have had some continuity, they've been involved in this before or bring particular experience to it. So it's hard ever to get a total balance, but those are the names suggested to me. I'm open to suggestion on it, but they seem to me, Shane Henderson, Richard Northey, Angela Dalton, Phelan Puri seem to be quite a good mixture. Most of you are familiar with those members.
So, Chair, my suggestion is one more of the local board members on there, as well as myself. I was on previously. The reason I wasn't on in the last one was because my colleague was on there, Councillor Collins, and that's why I asked him just before this whether he was going to go on this one or not. But that's an option, Your Worship, if you wish to take it up.
Okay, I kind of, my difficulty is if I make it bigger, I went through quite a lot of flack last time from local board members who said, we're here, but the governing body members aren't. So I don't want to repeat that. I know there's good reason why governing body members are really busy, but the bigger I make it, the harder it is to sometimes to get people to turn up. But
I'm only putting it forward, Your Worship, because I know you said 8 and 8 was the previous. We will end up having 5 and 5.
yeah, so it'd be 10.
So, yeah, well, it'd be 10, then prior that we had was 16.
Yeah. 10 is better than 16, but I suspect 8 is better than 10. But I'm happy to hear any discussion
Just a
from around the
question.
table
Oh,
on
just a
this.
question.
Councillor Cooper?
So, Mr Chairman, there are only 4 councillors that put their names forward. Was that why we've only got 4?
Yes,
That's exactly
Okay,
right.
so people had the opportunity, but they didn't put their name forward.
of course they did. Everybody, this is the first time I've seen the councillors' names there.
No, sorry, I was just
Oh, no,
asking,
sorry.
Mr Chairman,
Through the
he
chair,
only
yeah.
received 4
Yeah,
councillors'
I only got
names.
4 nominations, Alf.
Yeah,
I did send it out.
I'm just explaining the reason why
Yeah.
I didn't put it up, because I just assumed, and I just asked my colleague to my left whether he was whether it was on there, and the answer was no. So, look, it's there if you wish.
Yeah.
But like I
Happy to
said, I
stand
was on
down if
previously.
councillor Collins wants to go on, Mr Chairman.
No, I'm.
I don't.
It's me.
Councillor
So
Philippina.
that's the whole
It's
issue.
me.
Oh,
That's
okay,
why I
I
asked. Yeah, that's why I asked.
Can I
Councillor
make a
Cooper.
suggestion? Make a suggestion? See how it goes with these numbers, and if you feel that attendance means that you need to appoint 2 more people, then you can do that.
Yeah. If Councillor Cooper doesn't feel strongly about
No,
being
no, I
on,
think for me, Mr Chairman, my concern is it's a very monocultural group.
yep.
And that was why I said, look, I'm happy to stand down if we want some Pacifica representation. I mean, I'm just...
Sorry. Sorry, Your Worship,
I've got the
it's
same
not to
cultural
end up
heritage.
standing down. I mean, we had 8 and 8 before. I understood what the reasons were in regards to the non-attendance, for want of a better term, of the previous. I'm saying, and volunteering for this, because I assumed, and I assumed wrongly, this is why I asked my colleague to the left, if he was still on the actual committee. And he's just informed me that he's not, hence me saying that I will volunteer to go on it as well, not in place of
Yeah.
Councillor Cooper.
But I mean, yeah.
Yeah, I think, Councillor Philippina, what Councillor Cooper's offer is, I would prefer to keep the numbers small, simply because I'm advised by officials that a smaller group works more effectively than a larger group. I think the Deputy Mayor is shaking his head after having chaired the larger group, but if you felt a pressing need to be on, I'm sure Councillor Cooper would be happy to stand down and be an alternate member to you if you'd really like to be on.
Oh, look, you just missed the point. I mean, maybe
No, I
that's
haven't
why-
missed the point.
That's why I won't end up volunteering. But look, that's okay. We'll leave it as
Okay.
just the 4 and 4.
Thank you.
That's all right.
Any other comment
Waste of
from
time.
Quick comment.
Councillor
It is.
Newman?
He's shocking.
Chair, Your Worship, look, thank you. I actually, I mean, it might be trifling to everyone, but I'm putting myself forward as a councillor, not a South councillor, because obviously I have to have consideration for the issues beyond the South as well. So I'm putting myself forward to contribute in an equal way, but not with a particular preference for one geographic area of the region or knowledge of it. I mean, I might have a bit more understanding of the issues locally, but I just think that the bracketing a geographic location doesn't add anything. In fact, it possibly, at least from the councillor's perspective, might subtract.
Okay, Marguerite or Phil, do you want to comment?
So if I may, a couple of comments on this. Some local boards in their recommendations did ask that consideration be given to geographical spread.
Yeah.
The reason why it's relevant is because when you look at ward boundaries, one of the legislative requirements is to look at communities of interest, and so not put boundaries in the middle of communities. So the local knowledge is useful and relevant in that context. So this is why we took that into consideration, but it's never been intended that you would only look at the south issues. Of course, it's an Auckland-wide issue.
Okay, look, I'm sure councillors, if any of you, and all of us will have some interest in this, if we have 4 representatives on it, they are just that. They are representatives of this governing body, that they would be, they would make themselves available to discuss and raise issues on your behalf. Or if you needed, there'll be times where not all 4 members can get to it. We could appoint alternate members. I think it would be helpful to have an alternate member, actually. Councillor Philippina, if you were prepared to do that.
It's all good, Your Worship. We'll just leave it at 4-4, never mind the alternate. All
Okay.
good. No
Right.
problems there.
So, any further questions? I'll move the recommendations, A through to D3. Have I a seconder for that? Councillor Newman. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
To the contrary, no. Carried. I'll adjourn this meeting until 1:35.